Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Since we cannot have the virtual online class because of the power interruption, I am just going to give you a short input discussion on Module 4. So, as discussed in the previous chapter, communication is essential for personal and professional effectiveness. Further, it helps establish good relationships, creates better work environment, strengthens collaboration and cooperation, and unifies conflicting ideas. It is very important for you to develop one's own personal and professional communicative competence because in your own respective workplace in the future, all these indicators mentioned here are indeed helpful for you to stay in your job. So the first thing that you need to remember is that good communication on a professional and personal level will help you to establish good relationships. As you build relationships with your coworkers, you earn their respect. And when you earn their respect, you create a better working environment so that your institution, your company can strengthen collaboration and cooperation. And if ever there are conflicting ideas that may come along your way, you may not be disrupted, you may not be given any conflicting situations. Because of these elements, collaboration and cooperation, you can immediately resolve any conflicting ideas or problems at hand. Now, for the term globalization, as part of our lesson, I have given you one of the warm-up activity here to identify some of the modern online communication platforms available. The first one here, as you know, this is Twitter, this is Instagram, this is Facebook, this one is Skype, this one is Apple and Google. So these are new communication technologies because it allows us to communicate at a wide and um, vast and wide coverage of people, and at the same time it allows us to communicate effectively and promptly. Gone were those days that we need to be writing letters and we'll be waiting for at least months for a reply to arrive. But today, because of digital media platforms, everything that is manipulated by the finger, which is called digital, is just one click away, one touch away, and your message is sent here and abroad. Okay. Now, for the self audit, I hope you have answered already the 10 items here. Consider the result if you are under advanced, proficient, approaching proficiency, and developing stage. And the list here is the beginning. Now reflect. I want you to reflect in the latter part of this lesson. Why is it that your performance is under these levels? So for global communication, on the other hand, it's a very complex definition. For scholars and institutions would view it differently. Nonetheless, this class would have this basic concept of globalization as expansion. It is simply an expansion and integration of cultural, political, and economic and technological domains of the countries. Two big words that you need to remember. Expansion is going beyond the borders, going beyond the jurisdiction, and then integration, serving the needs of your clientele. You integrate more than what they need. This reflects that the world is borderless. We no longer build walls, but we build bridges. And the countries that are interconnected and interdependent with one another. For instance, in the United States of America, they have the products such as General Electric for appliances, Chevron, Starbucks, and McDonald's. For Japan, we have Toyota and Honda for vehicles. In the Philippines, the famous Jollibee and Bench. These are local companies that went beyond the borders of their country and have expanded overseas and have become transnational and multinational. There is a link between two countries and other countries that makes it transnational because whatever one country is enjoying, the other one enjoys it likewise. For multinational, you are able to link your products to more than one country, to one more than region, to one more than continent. That's what we call multinational. And this is where communication enters because without global communication standards being obtained by the businessmen and other personnel involved in the process, there would be no agreement, there would be no specific contracts to be signed or memorandum of agreement so that each parties would benefit from the products and services of both countries. Now, with the advent of globalization and advanced technologies and systems across regions, the flow of information and communication has become smoother, faster, and easier. So, three important descriptions of our global communication platforms today. Smoother, because we are able to simplify the way we communicate. Faster, because we are able to deliver the message promptly. And easier, because it is easy for us to get a reply through the internet. So, but plus business transactions and partnerships among the local and international institutions have become more efficient. So, one best example of this is our own email, our very own emails. Gmail, Yahoo Mail, MSN. And this goes likewise with social networking sites such as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. So these may be social networking sites, but they can send messages. But consequently, there are demands for effective global communication, skills that both students and workers need to come up, need to acquire, so that the demands and challenges brought by this phenomenon cannot be considered as a hindrance. So, what are these factors that we need to develop or we need to consider? One is the different background of our listeners, such as age. If ever you have parents or grandparents in the Philippines, you are working abroad, they don't know how to use Skype, they don't know how to use Messenger and other media platforms, it could be a factor for you not to communicate them and vice versa. Culture is also one factor, specifically if that person comes from a tribal village, there is no proper acquaintance and orientation and exposure to technology. Gender can also be a sensitive matter for global issues and concerns, especially for discrimination that is widely happening, especially in United States. For countries with different systems of religion, it can also be a factor, considering that communication is of vital importance in their belief. If they have religious ceremonies, if they have religious holidays, and it is difficult for them to communicate, it can be a factor. And then the orientations, preferences, and as well as the status quo of the community. But all these challenges will remain as challenges if we will not be coming up with immediate solutions. So, how do we communicate in a global society? There are six guidelines to be followed that can be useful in your degree program in the future. One is to express your ideas effectively in verbal, nonverbal, and written forms, either using digital or non digital environment or both. So, the clarity of ideas is very important. Remember the 5 C's on communication. Clarity is very important. At the same time, as future professionals, business English and correspondence is also one of the major factors for professionals not to communicate effectively because they are less knowledgeable of the technical aspect of business communication, writing business letters, memoranda, resumes, and other technical documents as far as business is concerned. Number two, use of effective listening skills to evaluate arguments and rationalize judgments and improve job effectiveness for work relationships. Remember that when if you want to be successful in your own field, you should have a listening heart, a listening ear. You always keep it in mind that you are not just there to work alone, but you will work with people. So you need to have that listening heart, listen to their sentiments, listen to their concerns. Most especially if you are an administrator. Most of you here will be in your class, you will be in your own chosen field in the future. You will be managers, you will be administrators, you will be you can be future college deans of certain departments under your program. So a listening skill is very important for you to evaluate arguments, to reason out effectively, and then improve your job effectiveness using proper and harmonious work relationship. And number three is communicate with purpose to a variety of audiences. So this is where purposive communication comes in. Begin with an end in mind. Why do you need to write a letter of endorsement? So ask yourself, who are your audience and what is your very purpose? That should be clear in you before you write it. Number four is to promote collaboration and cooperation with others so that others may also be motivated and inspired to work because the people you are working with are wonderful people, are people who can be trusted, are people who are happy to be with, to happy to delighted to work with. Number five is understand the concept of diversity and promote the culture of respect at all times. Despite your gender sensitive, your gender issues, your gender orientations, your preferences, your beliefs, your culture, everything should be placed in order and on the parallel level. So disregard any of the misconceptions, ideologies that are not congruent with one another. You are just there to work for the good of the company, for the good of the institution. So you have to understand the concept of diversity, individual differences. And when you recognize the value of individual differences, you are now slowly promoting the culture of respect. And then the last one is the use of technology and social media in a responsible manner. When you have issues and concerns with particular people, if it is your boss, if it is your coworker, or your subordinate, do not use social media platforms, social networking sites to air out your concerns, your complaints, because it will just make things worse. Not everything can be resolved by social networking sites or social media. You have to be very careful and be mature enough to handle situations with mature mind and respect. So with all these key points under module 4, what is the challenge for all of us? That is a question that we need to answer. So all these can be answered, can be developed deeper by clicking on the video, The Effect of Globalization on Communication. The link is there. You may just watch it during your convenient time. And then the responsible use of social media, as well as the link here can also be accessed. Now for your assignment, you may just read the article The Flight from Conversation by Sherry Turkle, retrieved from this website, but the text is already available in your module. After your reading time, I want you to answer these three guide questions using 3 to 5 sentences only per question. And then end your self study with a reflection. What were your misconceptions about the topic prior to taking up this lesson? And then what new or additional learning have you gained from this lesson in terms of skills, attitude, and content? Lastly, what is the very challenge for a future global communicator? If you will be working abroad, what is the challenge for you? If you are weak in one of the indicators, what could the reason be? And then what do you intend to do so that everything that makes you weak in a global communication setting can be improved? Okay? So thank you very much for your time. Have a joyful learning experience.